This is Matthew Diath's textual analysis of The Sixth Sense, and The Sixth Sense was directed by M. Night Shyamalan. I'm going to skip past the opening titles, just because it's quite long and there's not much to see. But one thing to say is that the distributors are Hollywood Pictures and Spyglass Entertainment. Also, on the titles, let's go around a bit here-ish, it's sans serif, so on the text, as you can see here, there's lines underneath, and that's conventionally related to Gothic themes. And I thought that was something to note. Also, the colour scheme of the black background and the white font, it stands out quite well. Also, Gothic convention. But let's get right into the sequence. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the soundtrack there is non-diegetic, and that's done by James Howard. It's a high-pitched tone, fast tempo, and it's done by strings and piano. They do that because it's able to get the high pitch, and that's very typical in horror themes. The lighting in that sequence I thought was quite good actually, because it went from dark to light from the light bulb, and then went from light to dark to this room, a long shot of the room, and that's low-key lighting, so I think the contrast there was quite nice in the two shots. That was also a close-up of the light bulb to get the intensity of it. As the light in the light bulb rose, the soundtrack slowly faded out, and there's a contrast there also, and I quite like that. So this is a long take at the moment. In editing they make the take a lot longer, and it allows the audience to fully see the setting and see her facial expressions. And as she walked towards the camera, we're able to get a close-up of her. It was a long shot, mid-shot, then a close-up, so now we're at close-up. The camera is behind the wine, and it's an unnatural place for the camera to be. And I think it makes the audience a little bit feel uneasy and a little bit unsettled, because the camera's not normally there, and I think that's quite nice. So another thing to note is that the camera follows her eyes. So the cinematography follows her eyes as it tilts down, and it seems as though the camera is someone's eyes and they're tracking her. So the audience is someone and they're behind the wine. It gives us a spooky feel and definitely unsettles the audience. Another thing is that there's no sound whatsoever, no non-diegetic soundtrack behind, and that's all the ambient sound of the scene, and that's only it. And the no sound creates mystery, and the audience feel a little bit of tension, a little bit of suspense for a jump scare that they're feeling is going to come. So we're still on that same frame and same shot, so it's still a long take. And the only noises we're getting once again is the wine, the ambient noise. So we're only getting the wine clonking against the wood. We get a quick zoom of cinematography onto her face, so we can definitely see her facial expressions of the worried shock. And then you just about heard some other noises in the distance, and that's why she's turning her head. Okay, so we heard some noise there, and the unnatural noises and crunching, and it's definitely not very pleasant. But then there's a match on action to this long shot, so we see her turning, and then the match on action comes out to the long shot. It first came to a mid shot. Let's rewind quickly. First came to a mid shot. There we go. And the lighting here is quite special, I quite like it. We see her shadow, and it shows her isolation as she's alone in the room, but we heard some noise, and we want to know why we heard that noise and why she turned in that direction. Is it someone there? Is it just an animal? Is it just some wood? We want to know. So then the next shot, is a long shot of her standing isolated, alone, and helpless. Very conventional feature of like females in horror films, as they're like the weak characters. The mise en scène. We see her dress. It's very purple. It's very, out there compared to the room. The contrast. It's expensive clothes, and it doesn't really match with the grey colour palette. Like, the colour palette is very grey in this scene, and yet she's wearing this purple dress. It stands out, and you feel like she shouldn't be there in that situation. So you wonder why she's down in the basement. So just before the scene began, we heard her heavy breathing. So let's quickly cut back to that. And we only get her breathing, and once again, no other non-diegetic noise. Now we get a rush of noise and the increase in intensity as the camera holds still, but yet she runs towards the camera. And I think from the silence to the loud plonking of her feet builds the suspense. So I think that mise en scène, the sound, editing, and cinematography in just that opening sequence is fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. So that's been my textual analysis for The Sixth Sense.